Welcome back to the Phoenix College Athletic Podcast. I'm Coach Cameron. I'll be your host for episode 19 as we bring back the Hall of Famer, the national championship winner, on repeat mode, Kristy Kincaid, otherwise known around the office as KK. She's back for her second appearance. Why? Well, in episode 8, we talk about her playing career, which is extensive, going from Central Arizona all the way to Montana State, and how she won 2 national championships, how she was the first female athlete to do so. And now we're going to talk about her coaching career and how she ended up at Phoenix College and what she does with student athletes at the 2-year institution, which is save lives. And that's what she does. I love watching her work and how she works with student athletes. We're going to talk about that in episode 19. Welcome. KK, you're back on the show. You were on episode 8 where we covered your playing career. Now it's episode 19. We brought you back, and now we have visual so people can actually see your face instead of the audio. So how you doing, KK?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. We were just talking about before the show that we're trying to get a little more creative during this COVID lockdown. I'm building things, and you're cooking books and doing other things, but we already covered the things you did in the pre-show, and I have a link in the description to go to episode 8 if anyone wants to know more about your playing career. But we're going to move on to your coaching career. But before we do that, you were in Sports Illustrated, featured for what? Before we move on to coaching.
So I wasn't coaching, it was playing. So I was one of the first females to win 2 national championships and at 2 different levels, both a junior college and an NAIA level, and MVP for both tournaments. So it's cool because as you get older, that stuff really starts being important. When you're younger, you're like, yeah, it's a nice award, but I'm like, yeah. So back in the day, I remember Joe Montana's on the cover and he's got all his rings with the football holding it. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
When he was with San Francisco. So, but yes, making that was pretty cool. They send you a nice little letter and then a real silver bowl with an inscription of Sports Illustrated on it. It's somewhere and it's tarnished. So, somebody probably thought, this old bowl, like, what is this? I need to go and polish it. So, but it is real silver, which is cool.
My brother was on the front page of Sports Illustrated.
Nice.
And he didn't play past high school. So he was featured with Mike Bibby, part of Team Dime.
There you go.
And I'm like, how in the flip do you get on that? I mean,
your family's famous.
Yeah, apparently. So, yeah. So let's talk about your coaching career. Soon as you finished playing, where was your first stop in coaching?
So let's see. I left. I was out in Montana playing and was in transition to come back and do student teaching because I was going to teach, and got all set up and came back and then found out that I still needed 2 classes. So they did, the whole graduation check, and they're like, hey, you got to come back. Obviously today we can get online and do all that fancy stuff. Back then, you'd have to go back to where you had went to school, and it would have been out of state, and for 2 classes, or I would have to take full load. Anyway, long story short, I just said, all right, I'm going to have to figure something out. So I got a job and decided I would go to NAU. And so I was taking like a class at a time. And I was actually working at America West, which, obviously they've all been bought. I don't know how many people bought them. Anyway, working there on the ramp. And so I was traveling, feeling pretty good. And I would run into my old coach, Lynn Larson down at Central Arizona at the community college I went to. And she would always say, KK, you need to come down and just help me coach. What are you doing? I said, well, I'm going to school. I'm still trying to finish because at NAU, I had to have now 32 credits from their institution. When you transfer, you have to have 32. So I ended up starting that, and it felt like it was taking me forever. So she would come and get recruits at the airport, and I would see her. And so then I'm giving them the spill, like, hey, you got to go there. It was the best thing of my life. And they'd come from all over. It would be international. It would be Texas, back east, Philly, you name it. Iowa, where I'm from, California, Pacific Northwest. So again, she's had athletes all across the U.S. and the world, basically. And so I would always be there, giving them. And so then it was almost like she would call me, hey, I'm picking up are you working? I'm picking up a kid. Are you working? Come help me. And so I'm like, oh yeah, I am working. So again, that whole recruitment piece, because I do love to talk, just started. And then she said, listen, they are starting a pilot program for NAU, a satellite where you go in where it's virtual, and this was, pretty as far as technology at that time, because it was, let's see, 96. So it was 96, and they were just starting this whole satellite program where you could you would go in a classroom and watch the instructor live. And so NAU had a program down there at Central Arizona, and she said, listen, come down. I'll pay for your schooling as an assistant coach. I'll give you a little bit of a stipend, and a little bit of the stipend, I think, was $1,000 for the year. So, dang, I don't know how I lived. Let me tell you that. It was definitely interesting, but if you can survive those times. So I did. I just said, screw it. I really wanted to finish school, and then I wanted to coach. I missed it, as an athlete, and definitely, being a highly competitive athlete, I missed it a lot. And I really enjoyed talking to the recruits when they came in. And I just wanted to be a part of that whole development of these kids coming in and just, really helping them. So that's where I started. So I coached there from 96 through 98. And what's interesting is, so that year in 98, which is the flip, 89 is when we won the national title. We were the first national title there at Central Arizona for women's basketball. And then 10 years later, I'm back and I'm coaching, and we win the second national title. And I did that as an assistant coach there at Central. So that was pretty cool to be in that atmosphere, and everything I learned as a player, then I got to kind of put in as a coach, and really just be a mentor and help, because obviously Coach Larson is like the grand scheme, the wizard of all of that. She has been there, or had been there for, I want to say, 38 years of coaching, and seen it all, done it all, and just had been a part of, a beautiful growth there. We called it the sport mecca, because every sport team was ridiculous. Track was national champions. Softball, who Mike Candrea, he was a coach down there, and then he went to U of A. And then Clint Myers, he was a softball coach there. He ended up he was a baseball coach, and then he was also a coach at ASU softball, and then went on to like Clemson or something. Anyway, just the entire campus was, world-class athletes. We'd have Jamaicans and African, everybody, every walk of life was there, and it was definitely highly competitive in every sport. So it was a great atmosphere to be in, because you're talking about super athletes.
Right. So after that, where did you? I'm getting feedback. I'm gonna have to pause it first. So transitioning from Central Arizona, where was your next coaching stop?
So at the national tournament, I got a few kind of interests from coaches. A couple of them, like University of Oregon, that coach Jody Runge, and they were actually doing well back at that time. And she's like, would you consider coming out there? I really need help in the recruiting department. We need minorities. We need to really be a school that, we can try to entice anyone to come. We need diversity, and people are afraid. And so I was like, maybe not so much. And I really wasn't ready to go that far. Uh-oh, we just went out. Oh, are you back?
Yeah, no, I have you.
Oh,
I'm frozen on your screen, but I'm good on mine.
okay. And so actually I got a call from UC Riverside. They were looking for a coach, and so they were in transition to go from Division II to Division I, and this was in '98. So I was there '98 to '99, and I was there 1 year. It was actually great. So it was a good transition for me to go into the 4 year as an assistant, and learned a lot. And then, while I was there, I ended up another school, University of Nevada. The head coach over there was like, "Hey, I really would like you to come aboard my program. What can we do to get you out at Nevada?" And I'm like, well, I mean, it just was, that transition just happened. So it kind of just took off. I went from the junior college, then, a year over at UC Riverside, and then went to University of Nevada and was there in '99 through 2003. I think it was 3 or 4, somewhere around there. Um, and so that's kind of how that all started. And just have really been, over the years, really been blessed to have been a part of some great young women, and really watching them blossom over the years. And I will be honest, I do miss that 4 year level, because I feel like you get to watch them build and grow,
Right.
and you have a part of that for 4 years, versus here we get them, it's like you got to get it and go. And it's hard, because I like to develop. I like to have that piece, and it never fails. When kids go to the next level, they're always calling, "Oh my God, coach, we love you." And man, we wish we would have really listened, and we wish we really would have really sunk in what you said, because you don't really appreciate things until they're gone, or it's
Yep.
different. And so they realized how good they have it here at Phoenix College, and what we do, because when you do go to the next level, it is different. And not to say that not programs couldn't provide that, but it is home. We really try to provide the best experience at a 2 year level, but it is almost the exact same as what it could be at a 4 year level.
It's interesting you bring that up, because a lot of my past athletes, especially the Division Ones, want to go in Division One. They have to go Division One, and they end up Division One, and then they come back and say the best time I ever had was at Phoenix College.
Right.
And I always ask the question why and all this stuff, and they really didn't understand why. I understood why. It was mainly because when they're at Phoenix College, you're not handed anything. You have to work for everything. It's not like we have an athlete's like, oh, they're eating up $40,000 of our scholarship budget. We're gonna have to play him. It's not the case. So everyone's on an equal playing field, whether you're getting a little bit of money or financial aid or whatever it may be. You're competing for it. But I think there's something with not being given things and suffering and going through that process of dealing with it, and then once you get through it, you're realizing, I'm like, that that was the best time of my life. And not to talk too much, but I correlate that on a vacation I went on. So my father-in-law took me on a fishing trip. He took his son-in-laws and his sons, and we went on a fishing trip. I'm like, oh, cool, we're going on a fishing trip. It was miserable. It was work. You were up at 5 a.m. fishing all day, come back for lunch, back on the boat, and go fish again for 5 days. And I'm like, this is the worst thing ever. And by the end of the week, because my wife and her sisters, they went to like New York and wined and dined, and I'm like, that's where I want to be. But when the trip was finished, I was like, after processing, now knowing what I went through, I was like, I want to go again. This was awesome.
Right.
And you just don't know that you don't know, kind of thing.
Right.
So I think that has a lot to do with it. So let's talk about you're an assistant coach for a couple of years at Phoenix College, and then you became the head coach, which now you're entering your 11th season, I believe. Yeah, it's your 11th season. Talk to me about, you've coached at Division I, Division II. They're transitioning, junior college. What's the difference as far as coaching? You know, what are the jobs that you have to do at junior college versus what you have to do at the university?
Well, obviously budget is the biggest, thing. And at the community college you do everything. If you want to be good at something, you do it all. You have to make sure you understand, and it's kind of like being the one-stop shop. You have to know a little bit about financial aid, you have to know about registering, you have to know about admissions, you have to know about eligibility. So I would say, and I say this all the time, we as community college coaches really could be really successful Division I coaches because of how much knowledge and how much work we have to do. So when they come in to visit and watch, our athletes, they're seeing us running from one end going to the other. We're having to, oh, I got to go to this meeting, I got to fundraise, and we're having a bake sale. Oh, we got game management. Oh, we got to do this. They got weights, I'm going to take them over there. And so we're constantly doing all these different jobs, and sometimes that can be difficult because typically our assistants get, that $1,000 or whatever it is, which, again, thank God we have them, and they usually do it because they love the sport. But
Right.
we wear a lot of hats, and at our level and the type of school we are, the type of athlete, you have to know who you're recruiting. You have to know your group, who is our athletes. Where did they come from, what are their needs. And typically, I'll get the kids that academically maybe need to brushing up a little bit, and before they get to that 4-year level, it's they don't have the luxury of a 2-parent home, and so there's a lot of different strikes against them. But at the same time, they see this as an opportunity to get to the 4-year. And then I also get the high academic kids that maybe experience wise they need a little more. So we've got a good healthy balance. But in the big scheme of things, I think I probably attract kids that maybe have a lot of challenges, but yet if they realize they've survived as much as they've survived in life, that little 94 by 50 feet should be a piece of cake. And sometimes it's just teaching them that you have survived some things that most people could never survive.
Right.
And then here we are trying to be supportive and being a mentor and a brother and a mother and a father and all these different things to these kids, and they don't get it sometimes until they leave. But yeah, we do a lot. We do a lot.
And the difference of kids we get, the student athletes, the pool of student athletes is huge, meaning we're open to anybody. So
Right.
anyone pretty much can qualify. There's always a way at our level, like even kids without a high school diploma, there's a way. So
Right.
we show them the way. We show them how to go through the process of getting a GED, and then we go through a lot of different things. We'll get Division I athletes to kids that haven't graduated high school. So we have to know how to deal with all of that versus a Division I program. Oh, you don't qualify? All right, next.
Right.
I mean, they deal with, typically kids that are being taken care of. They have a mother, father in the home. They're just, they have the financial means to actually make it happen.
Right.
We have to be creative at all times, because the one thing I don't like doing is deny an opportunity when I know
Right.
I can figure it out. And that takes a lot of time and energy. So
Right.
yeah, you have to be very creative. And then of course, you have to be a counselor, advisor. You have to
Right.
do all the things to make sure, like, you can do these things. You can graduate. You can go
Right.
through this process to
Mhm.
qualify, and we push them all
Right.
to qualify for Division 1 because you don't want to deny them the opportunity. So
Right.
it's it- it's a never ending battle. So let's talk about some of your past players.
Okay.
Uh, who comes in mind? I don't want to put you on the spot and have some of your past players get upset with you, but um, any players come in mind that came to Phoenix College under your program that went on that you were just totally elated for them, that you didn't think they were going to make it, or I don't know what kind of stories do you have for me and our listeners about what you've seen as far as someone coming into your program and helping them along the way to continue on.
I mean, that's all the stories, honestly, to be real honest. And it's hard to try to single them out. I mean, I can tell you some from an academic side, from an athletic side, from just being told no coming in. One. I mean, there's lots of stories. I think the biggest thing is that when they come to Phoenix College, it's about that opportunity, and it is about that growth. I think that one that comes to mind, I don't want to like share too much, but she was at a program that was shutting down, and she was, I mean, high class athlete, definitely everybody in the conference wanted her. And she had a lot to do because the program that shut down never really said, hey, you still need to finish out the semester. So her, and along with some other athletes, just kind of took off. Again, not
Yeah.
that accountability. And so she ended up having to do quite a few summer school classes. And when she came in, everybody else, here's the letter of intent, they're ready for her to sign. And yet she still has to complete, her summer school. And I'm thinking, she comes in because we had open gym, and it was during the summer. She comes in, she goes, hey, coach, I'd like to talk to you. I want to play for your program. And so I'm like, we need to sit down and talk before all that. And so then I'm looking at her grades and everything, and I'm thinking, whoa, I don't even know. I've seen some really interesting transcripts. I'm like, you almost have to take a full load during summer, and that's unheard of. It's definitely unheard of. I go, is it possible? Yes. I go, so I won't be able to look at you until you finish those classes. And she's like, yeah, but everybody else is signing me. And I said, I need to know you're vested. I need to know you really want to be here. And let me tell you, Dave. So I'm saying that, and I'm thinking inside, oh my God, I really want this kid because she's legit. She is the real deal. And I took and said, well, you figure it out. Come to me at the end of the summer, and you let me know if you pass those classes. All right. And I turned around and I walked out the gym. So every step I'm like, oh my God, I sure hope I did the right thing. And she turns around, she says, coach, you'll see, I'm gonna play for you. I'm gonna play for you. And I said, okay, I'll see you at the end of summer. So what happens? This kid blasts these classes, gets them done, gets eligible, comes in, throws her like transcripts down on my desk, and it's like, told you I could do it, told you. And went from such a low grade point average that this kid went over a 3.0 while she was here, ended up graduating. And I'm telling you, it was like a transformation. But no one ever challenged her. No one ever, made her accountable. And it's unfortunate that sometimes when athletes are so, you know, I mean, they're just so athletic that they're almost being used. And
Yeah.
and that's the unfortunate part. And I think that kind of comes back to me playing and me understanding what it's like and all of that. But she just had to be pushed and be accountable for her actions or lack thereof. And so, I mean, came in all American. I mean, she got probably some of the first quadruple doubles that had been seen here at Phoenix College. And I mean, she was an athlete. She was always playing pickup with the guys. We'd have practice, and I'd walk in, and she's just constantly in that gym. And then if she wasn't in the gym, she started going to the study center and started getting help. And it was amazing to see that transformation. And then that's again one of the biggest things that she said is, you know what, coach, thank you, because nobody has done that. And she had a lot of D1 offers and ended up wanting to go to Canada, went there, and ended up, again, that's a long ways away. And I don't think that they really knew her needs. And she ended up leaving and then going back and finishing up, and then is playing professionally. So again, that's one of them. I had another kid that had been at Pima, and she came in, and I mean, that GPA, that again, we are the door of opportunity. All you got to do is push. So she comes in, same thing, coach, I really want to play for you, want an opportunity. And I'm thinking, okay, you're going to have to redshirt. There's no way, there's not enough classes in the summer to catch up. So you'll have to redshirt, and then we'll see. And I said, but right now, just work on getting your GPA. And she was coming from Tucson, so he would drive up, and I mean, pester me and pester me and pester me. So finally, I'm like, all right, so you've shown this much initiative, and I'm going to give you a shot, and a shot to redshirt, right? And we really don't redshirt our kids. It's just like you come in, you take classes, you get yourself on target, and you go from there. But she was another one that really did a 180 and then ended up joining the honors program. So, I mean, awesome kid, awesome kid. And then ended up she went to an HBU college down in Alabama, finished, and now is an assistant coach down there. And again, it's about just opportunities, someone believing in you. And I think that that's the thing, is that these kids come in sometimes broken, and not really not knowing what to do or how to do it. And so you come in and you start talking to them and believing in them and showing them the way that there is opportunity and you can get out of this, and there is a future for you, and they start believing that, and they flourish on the other end. So that again is the part that I love. I've had kids pay their own way. I had an international student come in, and she paid her own way. I mean, who does that? Who pays their own way at a community college? And there's no dorms here. And so again, it's about, they see opportunity and they want to be a part of this. And so there's a lot of this, but that's what I'm most proud of, is just watching these kids develop and blossom. And I feel like I've got every career around. I finally got my first veterinarian, but I've got engineers, doctors, lawyers, coaches, I mean, everything. And so it's amazing. And it's amazing that they call you back and thank you all the time. And so it is, it's great, because I get to call these kids now that I have coming in. They say, oh, I want to be a physical therapist. Let me call one of my kids, because they're a physical therapist now. And they can talk to you about their journey and how it started here at PC, and they went on to the 4-year and what they did. So again, it's about those relationships and those bonds, and we're family. So, and you don't forget family.
Yeah. And we could go all night sharing story after story. And the one thing I talk about you in the pre-show is you're one of my favorite coaches in our department. And a lot of it is with your work ethic and the amount of time you spend with each individual, which is, it's a lot of time. And I think that's why your days when we're in season, we're actually on campus, they end up being anywhere from 8 to 14 hours per day, because we're in a situation of time frames, and you can't allow them not to have the proper push to drop the ball, because it just, you can't be in a situation where they're taking the wrong classes, because then you have to make up for it in summer. And you got to pay attention to every little detail, because you might put yourself in a situation where you have to fundraise more, or they have to do extra work so they can transfer to the proper university. And if you're not on top of it, talking and networking with coaches for a transition, because it's important to find out where they're going early, because then we know how many credits actually transfer, because it's a never-ending process. And I think that's probably our hardest job, is we have to pay attention to everything. You have to know the rules for the NCAA, the NAIA, what credits transfer where, and I was just talking to a parent, and we're just talking. I was talking how I always go to the NCAA employment, and I always look to see what jobs open. They're like, "Oh, you looking for another job?" I'm like, "No, I want to know which coaches are leaving, and if they're leaving, I want to know who the new coach is so I can contact them, because they're going to lose players, and I know they need players." Right. And so I'm, those are little details I pay attention to make sure I can transfer my student athletes, but it's work, and it's a lot of work. I want to talk to, two more things. This is kind of off from coaching, but I want to talk about tell the story of Nolan Ryan. Let's talk about that, and then we're going to talk about Bo Jackson, and we'll wrap it up. So, what happened with Nolan Ryan?
Here you go. So, of course, I in transition, I got out of coaching for a little bit because I have a daughter, and I thought, oh God, I'm not at home enough. And anyway, I got into just a regular job, and I worked for City of Surprise, and I was out at their stadium. So they during spring training housed the Rangers and the Royals, and so I was part of special events in the spring training. And obviously the Rangers were really good during that time, and the Royals were, but they would come in, and so I'm meeting all these professional baseball players, their wives, and all this. And one of the rules was you could not get any kind of signature or anything, and so I would never ask, but B, that's not even my sport. I mean, I appreciate baseball, love it, but I just didn't really know all of it. And Nolan Ryan was the pitcher for the Rangers at the time, and he would always come in, and I'd greet him, "Hey, how you doing?" And I'd see his wife and kids, and they'd go to the suites, and "Hey, how you doing?" "Great." And I was the only one that never asked for balls to be autographed. And he came up to me and he said, "Hey, you want a couple balls autographed?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, I couldn't do that." And I said, "No, I'm good. Thank you for asking." So meanwhile, all these people kind of hear this going on, and they're thinking, "Has this lady lost her mind? Like, does she know who this is?" And I'm like, I know him. I'm thinking, wow, he's older and he's pitching, and he's pitching no hitters. Like, damn, he's like 40 some years old, and his arm is still, like Superman, and that's what I knew of him. So I was more in awe of his age and how he's maintained over the years than I was, who he was. And so, again, all the time, I think it became this big joke. Like, he would just keep coming by, and it was always with either news writers or whatever. They're about to interview him. He'd ask, and I'd say, "No, I'm good." So I ended up later on, one of the guys that was a sports writer, he came up to me and said, "You know what you're doing? Like, you understand what you're doing?" And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Those balls would be worth a lot of money, just so you know." And he didn't just say he'd sign one, he said he'd sign a dozen. So I'm like, okay. So, long story short, a couple of years ago, our men's coach at men's basketball, he played baseball, and I was telling him my baseball story, and he goes, "Please don't share this with anybody," because if they know anything about baseball and you tell them what you did, he goes, "Oh my God." So of course I shared the story with him, and he's like, "He's one of my heroes. Are you kidding? Like, you really did this?" I said, "Yeah, I didn't know." And he goes, "Oh my God, please don't claim that." So I told him that story, and he's like, "Oh," I mean, he let me have it. And again, now I look at it, and of course I look up, what those signatures are worth. I'm like, I could have had another kind of situation going on, but it's all good.
Well, I'll make sure I'll tag Nolan Ryan on this. I'll edit this clip for it.
I mean, both of us have a little bit of gray hair. He's probably like, what? I don't remember that.
Yeah. So finally, let's talk about Bo Jackson, a lot of people's hero in both baseball, football, whatever he wanted to do. It was how did you meet Bo Jackson? And just tell the story. I always love this story.
So my sister came out to Arizona from Iowa for spring break, and I had just had like ankle surgery, and I'm like, all right, I got to take her out, and obviously I was down at a little ways from Tempe, but she wanted to be where all the action was, right? So I said, all right, well, I'll take you out to a couple of places. So we decided to go to this club, and here I am on crutches, and so I'm all crutching around trying to find a table, and she's like, all right, I'm gonna go comb around, check this place out. It's looking great. All right, good, have fun. I'm just gonna sit down, plop my leg up, just come back around when you get back. So I'm sitting there, and I'm just kind of like, oh, this is crazy. I'm looking at my watch, wondering how long she's gonna take, because obviously I don't want to be there, and I got a cast on. And so this huge dude comes, and he bends over and he says, "Hey, would you like some company?" And I go, I don't know. Like, what do you mean? And I'm thinking, what in the world? And he goes, "Well, I just have to secure an area, and we have someone coming in. Would you like some company?" I said, "Why not? I'm bored anyway. I'm sitting here." And I actually had the best kind of seating area in the place. And I said, "All right." So, I mean, boom, 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 all these people come, and these ropes and these things like pop out. And I'm like, damn. And then I said, "Now, can my sister get back here? Because she's wandering around somewhere out there." I go, "Because she's going to need to come sit back down." And he goes, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And I go, "Well, who is it?" And so he's like, "Yeah," he's not paying attention to me. So it's like the spotlight, pops on. Here comes Bo Jackson. I know Bo Jackson. So I'm like, damn. He walks in. I'm like, holy crap. I even stood up. I'm like, get up on my crutches. Wow. And he goes, no, sit down, sit down, sit down. I had the greatest night. I mean, he is so personable, and we talked about everything. And I just felt like I was this big celebrity star. And, finally my sister gets done doing all her, like, checking out everything. And she comes down, she goes, what is going on? I'm like waving her over, like, yeah, come on, let her in. And, we meet him, and he just, awesome dude. He talked about, I told him we were from Waterloo, Iowa, and he's like, oh, I played minor leagues there. There's a little minor league team that's there. And, he just talked about the Midwest itself. He loved Kansas City when he was playing with the Royals. And then, with football, like, it was just amazing. So, again, I tend to bump into people like that, for whatever reason. I guess, I don't know. It's just, that was an amazing night, though. But yes, bumped into him, had a great night, and of course, met a lot of people because everybody wanted to come see him, and everybody wanted to know Bo, because I think that slogan was, "Do you know Bo?" or "Bo know," or "Bo knows something.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was super cool.
Yeah. So there's and if you want to know more of those stories, you can talk to KK personally, not in a podcast, because there's more details of that story that we can't talk about.
We won't go too
nothing
deep.
inappropriate for KK, but it or Bo. It was just kind of the situation. But we want, this is a rated G podcast, so we'll keep it that way. But yeah, so this is your second time on the podcast, and we'll probably have you on again when we ever get going.
Perfect.
And when we're in person, we can talk about your team and all the things that are going on with.
Because this is definitely, it's hard. We're used to hands-on doing things, and so coming up with new innovative ways to keep them motivated, keeping track of them. It's real, and making sure they're safe. I think we're all in a situation where this is the real deal, and we have to safety first. And we all want to play, but at the same time, not when an epidemic can take a life. So it is important to keep things in perspective and that. So, but I am looking forward to 2021 because it has been definitely some challenging times. So
yes, and it's not about game. I know it's not about games for you and I, because the game is the carrot.
right,
We want to change these athletes' lives
right,
through sport is
Mhm.
how we do it, and it is nerve-wracking because you don't know what they're doing. You
right,
can't. It's different when you see them one-on-one. You can see their face, and you can have a conversation, see them daily, and you can see if they're okay. And we don't have that luxury right
right,
now, so that is
right,
scary. A phone call, a Zoom, it's not going to work.
right, right,
It doesn't work like obviously hands-on. So uh, we're hopeful that things will move on, and we'll get back to the things that we love, which is saving lives at Phoenix College. And we appreciate everything you do. I see it, down the hallway, what you do, and I know there's a lot of student athletes that really appreciate you and the many lives you've touched that we haven't covered. We covered some, but obviously there's a lot more than
right.
what we talked about. So we love you, KK. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us, and we're looking forward to 2021 as soon
Yes,
as possible.
absolutely,
So
absolutely.
this is Coach Cameron signing out with Coach Kincaid, and we'll see you guys next time.
All right.